Now the key difference is that the Tucson is the smaller vehicle, so it very directly competes with the CR-V, RAV4, etc., whereas this is a much larger vehicle. So this actually is about the same size as the Ford Edge and the Toyota Venza. So this is a mid-size two-row crossover, and the other is a compact two-row crossover. Now that distinction is very important as we go around the Santa Fe Sport because there aren't very many competitors in this mid-size two-row crossover to directly compare the Santa Fe Sport with. And that's why you see most of the comparisons on Hyundai's own website featuring the CR-V, RAV4, etc. The Santa Fe Sport has all of Hyundai's latest design themes going on up front. We have these bold headlamps, these interestingly shaped fog lamps that actually stick out of the front of the vehicle rather than being recessed into the front of the vehicle like you find in most cars out on the road. And we also have this new trapezoidal grille right here with a 3-bar, very large and bold chrome grille. Up front, we have a few options that you don't find in the cheaper entries in this segment. So we do have available xenon headlamps and LED daytime running lamps. And overall, I think this front end is incredibly attractive. This is definitely one of the most masculine entries in this segment. It reminds me an awful lot of the Ford Edge, which I think is a very good thing. The side profile of this generation Santa Fe is definitely a little bit boxier than before. We have this tall hood right here. We have a relatively simple sideline that swoops up towards the back, as you can see right here. Now we do have a roof that retains its consistent height all the way to the back that helps improve rear seat room. And if you got the Santa Fe without the Sport, that's the 6 or 7 passenger version, then we get an extra 10 inches right back here for a third row. If you take a look at the ruler at the bottom of your screen, you can see that this is 2 inches longer than a Jeep Cherokee, 6 inches longer than a CR-V, 5 inches longer than a RAV4, but it is about 10 inches shorter than a Dodge Journey and about 3 inches shorter than a Chevy Equinox. This is right about the same size overall as a Ford Edge. Now right back here on the rear, you'll notice that we do have this sloping rear glass, but this doesn't slope quite as severely as you'll find in your average 5-passenger SUV. That means we have a little bit more cargo room right back here than you'll find in some of those competitors. As with many mainstream crossover vehicles, the rear end is definitely form follows function. We have this rear glass that is a little bit more vertical than you'd find in some of the competition out there. Some of the competition has a very sloped rear glass that does cut in on rear cargo practicality. It's not going on here. Our model has the option of LED tail lamps, which are very attractive. We have rear parking sensors on our particular model as well. Single exhaust tip right over there on that side. Overall, I give the Santa Fe Sport 9 out of 10 points when it comes to my exterior style score. Go ahead and let me know what you think about it down there in the comment section down below. Now in the Sport variant of the Santa Fe, you won't find a V6 engine. Instead, we have a base 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engine. It produces 190 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque. It's a little bit more than most of the other entries in this segment. If that's not enough oomph for you, you can opt for the 2-liter turbocharged engine. It produces 264 horsepower and 269 pound-feet of torque. Both of these engines are mated by default to a 6-speed automatic transmission, sending power right here to the front wheels. But for an additional $1,750, you can get an optional all-wheel drive system with either engine. Fuel economy comes in at 20 miles per gallon city, 27 highway, and 23 combined for the front-wheel drive 2.4-liter engine. It drops slightly to 19, 25, 21 with all-wheel drive. If you get the turbo engine, fuel economy comes in at 19 miles per gallon city, 27 highway, and 22 combined for front-wheel drive, 18, 24, 21 for all-wheel drive. Now, due to the overall size and the fact that we don't have a CVT under this hood, you'll notice that the fuel economy numbers in the brand new 2015 CR-V as well as the Nissan Rogue are a little bit higher than this. Front seat comfort ranges from 8 out of 10 points in the base models to 9 out of 10 points in the upper trim levels. Our particular model has the optional 12-way driver's seat with a 4-way adjustable power lumbar support and a 2-position seat memory right there on the door. We do have a tilt telescopic steering column, but the range of motion isn't quite as large as you'll find in something like a Ford Edge. The Ford Edge's steering wheel does come out a decent amount further. We also don't have a passenger seat with the same range of motion as the driver. The passenger seat is lacking that 4-way lumbar support. Moving back to the second row, we get 10 out of 10 points back here in our particular model, 9 out of 10 points in the base model. Our model does have the reclining seat backs. It goes from this very vertical position to help you square off that cargo area to a position that's far more reclined than your average crossover vehicle. This actually is a fairly comfortable seat. It also is nicely padded, and our particular model has the optional sliding second row to help you, again, square off the cargo area and get a little bit extra cargo room back there. This is about as far forward as I can go. That is about as far back as I can go. Now, padding in the middle seat is a little bit stiffer than in the outboard seats, as you would expect. However, this middle seat is still relatively comfortable as far as middle seats go. You'll see why I give this 10 out of 10 points in rear comfort, because even though we're in the model with the panoramic sunroof, which does cut down on headroom, I still have about an inch of headroom right here in this middle seat. Now, the Santa Fe does have a bucket-style rear bench seat, so the middle seat is higher off the ground than the outboard seats. If I scoot over here to this other side, then I have about an inch again over here because of the way that the ceiling is formed with this panoramic roof. I would have about 2.5 inches or so if we didn't have the panoramic roof. Now this front seat is adjusted for a 6'5" passenger that I had in the vehicle, and I still have about 2 inches of legroom left right there. Now some nice touches in the back are air vents that are actually on the B pillars of the vehicle. They're not in the center console. I find that positioning a little bit better because the vent can actually be a little bit higher up towards my face. We still have foot vents down there on the floor, and our model also has these optional window shades that are integrated very nicely into the door. The fold-down center armrest in the back is not as softly padded as you'll find in something like a Ford Edge, but we do get 2 very large cup holders right there. We also get a very handy feature in that this rear seat back folds in a 40-20-40 folding fashion. So you can fold this side down, you can fold the center section down to put larger items like IKEA furniture in here without disturbing the 2 outboard passengers. That makes it a little bit handier than other vehicles where you'd have to fold down the 40 side of the seat and then your cargo would hit the front passenger seat, or you'd have to fold down the 60 side of the seat and then you'd lose 1 extra seat in the back. Now the rear seats still fold in a 60-40 folding fashion like this. As you can see, you either use that lever right there on the seat or the lever in the rear cargo compartment. All right, let's take a quick spin around the interior. Up here we have height adjustable seatbelts for both the driver and the front passenger. We also have these 4-way adjustable headrests. They move in and out as well as up and down, and you use this button on the side, which is a very natural way to move them around. Now, as you can see, our model has this enormous panoramic sunroof. It is one of the largest ones available in this segment. Because our model is essentially a loaded 2.4-liter version, we do have perforated leather seats that are heated and cooled up front and heated rear seats. If we take a look at the front door panels, we do find a lot of soft touch plastics. We have soft touch plastics on the upper, midsection, armrest, and hard touch plastics down lower in the door. Ours is made in this very attractive 2-tone scheme where we have brown that matches the seats and this charcoal or black lower and upper. Integrated below the armrest, we have some additional storage as well as a bottle holder. And as you can see, our particular model has the up-level dimension sound system. Moving on over to the dashboard, we also have a combination of hard and soft touch plastics. We have hard touch plastics right up here on top, which is a little bit different because these hard touch plastics mate right over there by the door with the soft touch plastics up there. We have soft touch plastics right over here, very similar to the door as well. We also have fake carbon fiber trim, and then below that, everything in the dashboard is a hard plastic. Now, even though the Santa Fe does have a lot of hard plastics going on the interior, it is very attractively designed, and this is what I refer to frequently as choosing the right corners to cut. Hard plastics are less expensive to manufacture in general than soft touch plastics. So Hyundai saves a little bit of extra money here by giving you a hard touch upper dashboard and hard touch lower dashboard, and that is part of what gets the Santa Fe Sport its low price tag. Now, in relative terms, it's easy to make things cheap, but value is quite another matter, and I think that Hyundai cut all the right corners inside this cabin. Moving down lower in the dashboard, we have a moderately sized glove compartment. You can see we have this very chunky instruction manual here, and that does fit in there. I was able to fit an iPad and another small tablet computer right inside. Now, our particular model also has the top-end infotainment and navigation system. If you want to know more about this, then go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be taken on over to that review. We have keyless go right over here. That's this button on the right side of the steering wheel, buttons for our front and rear defogger, button for our access to climate control system. This is more of just a display because you actually access the various functions with the buttons right over here. So you change the mode, which vent the air is coming out of with that button right there. Change whether you want dual zone climate control enabled or disabled. Temperature buttons right there, fan button, or you can just hit auto. Below the climate control, we have this storage cubby right here, and it is accessible from either side or from the front. There's some small openings there. We have 12-volt power outlets right there, and then behind this hinge door, we have our auxiliary input and our USB input, and a little storage cubby with a mat to help throw various items in there. One nice improvement in this version is that we no longer need a special adapter cable in order to use an iPod or other iOS device. You just use the USB cable. Now, behind that storage cubby, we have our heated and our cooled seat controls, and this does have a cooled seat for both the driver and the front passenger right over there. We have a very traditional gear shift, and then we have 2 very large cup holders. These are not closable or adjustable, and they do accommodate the very largest of drinks that I was able to throw at it. Center armrest is large and thickly padded. If we open it, we have a tier for storage there, and then we have a very deep well. We can throw a lot of things in there. I was able to fit a gallon of milk for reference right there in there, but I was not able to close the lid with the gallon of milk inside. Over on the driver's side, we have this very typical 2-dial instrument cluster with the tachometer over here on the left and the speedometer over here on the right. I suppose you could almost call us a 4-dial instrument cluster because we get a little temperature dial for the engine and a little fuel dial right over there. inside the speedometer and the tachometer. In between those, we have this color multi-information display. It is controlled by this button module right over here on the steering column that we'll take a look at in a bit. You could cycle between AV information, navigation directions, service information, settings, as well as our trip computer that gives us range, as well as trip A and trip B. Now, one very interesting touch with this instrument cluster is if I look around the steering wheel at the side of this instrument cluster, you can actually see that the module where the fuel gauge as well as the temperature gauge are located actually sort of floats above the respective dial. So I'll zoom right in on that, and you can see that's actually sort of like a little hockey puck right there. Moving out to the steering wheel, we have this very attractive 4-spoke steering wheel. This themed sort of like a 3-spoke steering wheel. These 2 spokes at the bottom sort of narrow to give it a 3-spoke visualization right there. On this side, we have our radio controls, volume up, down, track up, down, mute, mode button. Voice command button, hang up, and pick up buttons are dedicated. Again, these buttons right along this side control that multi-information display right there in the center. On this side, we have our cruise control buttons, cruise enable, disable, cancel, resume, and set. And it also gives you up and down in terms of speed. Right over here, we have a button to change the steering effort in the vehicle. As you can see, if I press that button, right now we're in sport. You can cycle between sport, comfort, and normal. It is displayed in that multi-information display. Moving over to the driver's left, we have our window controls down here, mirror controls, 2-position driver's seat and mirror memory, dimmer, active eco button, and our heated steering wheel button. The Santa Fe Sport has one of the largest cargo capacities among its competitive set. In fact, if you fold the second row flat, you actually get more cargo room in here than you'll get in both the Edge or the Venza. I have 2 large roller bags here. Obviously, they easily fit right in the back. If I pull them out, you'll notice that I do have an additional little hatch right here. We have some cargo storage over here. We'll have the jack right over here. And then if we lift this other compartment up, and you find a large storage area right back here with a styrofoam divider in it that can be removed from the vehicle. Now, if you do remove that styrofoam divider and its lid, then you can actually put some additional luggage right here in that cargo well, because as you can see, this 24-inch roller bag fits almost completely flush with the cargo load floor once that's in there. Now, the second row also slides forward and aft, like I said earlier. That's an option, but that means that you can put additional luggage all the way forward there and still fit a shorter person right there in the second row. Aiding in cargo practicality is a subwoofer that's very nicely integrated in the side of the cargo area, so it doesn't take up additional cargo space. We also have some cargo tie downs on the side, and we have a lever right here to help you fold the second row seat from either the back or from the second row seat itself. So there's a handle on the seat, you can do that over there, or you can just pull this handle right here. We do not, however, have a standard tonneau cover that is a little bit of a disappointment. Even though we don't have a power tailgate in this model, we do have a very sturdy handle right here to help you close the tailgate, and it's not terribly heavy, making it easier to close the tailgate. Right over here is a very handy feature. If you take a look at that little logo there, it should tell you what it is. It's the tailgate release. So if you do get trapped in the tailgate, you can release it like that. This is not required by federal law. You only have to have it in vehicles with an actual trunk, but I do think it's a very nice touch in this crossover. I love additional under-the-floor cargo room so much, I'm going to give this 10 out of 10 points when it comes to my exclusive Trunk Comfort Index. You do have quite a bit of room right here under this cargo partition. That's something I really appreciate. For 2014, the Santa Fe starts at $24,950. It is important to keep in mind, as I said earlier, that the Santa Fe Sport is kind of a tweener vehicle. This slots size-wise in between the Ford Edge and the Ford Escape, and that is very important to keep in mind when it comes to pricing and comparisons. If you want the 2-liter turbocharged engine, that starts at $30,650, and you can add all-wheel drive to either the 2.4 or the 2.0T for $1,750. Now, as we've come to expect from Hyundai, once you select the drivetrain, you just choose from a few select packages. There really are very few standalone options on this vehicle. On the 2.4-liter model, we have the popular equipment package that is $1,150. It gives you roof rails, fog lights, auto headlamps, heated mirrors, power driver's seat, heated front seats, leather steering wheel, and a 4.3-inch touchscreen audio system. We then have the premium package for $3,200. It gives you blind spot monitoring, leather seats, power passenger seat, sliding second row, 2-zone climate control, keyless go, dimming rearview mirror, and the integrated rear window shades. We then have the tech package, which is $3,200, and our vehicle also has that option right here. That gives you the panoramic roof, rear parking sensors, 8-inch nav system, premium audio, heated steering wheel, ventilated seats, heated second row, and the memory system for the driver's seat. Now, the options on the 2.0T aren't the same because the 2.0T comes with extra standard equipment in that base model versus the base 2.4-liter engine. The first option package on the 2.0T is the navigation option for $1,750. In addition to the 8-inch navigation system, you also get 19-inch wheels and the Infinity 12-speaker surround audio system. The 2.0T model can also be had with a $4,350 technology package that gives you 19-inch wheels yet again. We also get xenon headlamps that I mentioned earlier, the panoramic roof, rear parking assist, heated steering wheel, the memory system for the driver's seat, ventilated seats, and the heated rear seats. Now let's talk about pricing on the competition. The Ford Edge starts at $28,100 and that V6 is standard. If you opt for the Chevy Equinox, it starts at $24,440, V6 is $28,940. When you compare the V6 engines in the competition, keep in mind that this is significantly lighter than the competition, even though this doesn't have as much power as GM's 300 horsepower V6 in that Equinox or the Terrain. The Jeep Cherokee starts at $22,995, $24,495 if you get the V6. It's probably the least expensive V6 in the segment. The RAV4, $23,550, there's no V6. The Rogue, $22,790, again no V6. And the Honda CR-V, $23,120, yet again no V6. The RAV4 is $1,500 less than a base model Santa Fe. You get a little bit less than that RAV4 than you get in the Santa Fe, and the interior isn't quite as nice as the Hyundai either. You also get a vehicle that is significantly smaller than this, and that is important to keep in mind. Same thing goes for the CR-V. It's $1,875 less, it's a decent amount smaller, and it is also a little bit less nice on the inside. Now that said, the CR-V is still one of my favorite entries in this segment, and it is also an excellent value, especially at the lower end trims. Hopefully I'll have my hands on the 2015 model very shortly. Fuel economy went up in that thanks to the new engine and transmission under the hood. One important thing to keep in mind with the CR-V is that the way Honda packages options, you do have to climb significantly up the ladder to get things like navigation on the inside. Jeep's Cherokee is $1,835 less than this, however it is smaller, it's also significantly heavier. One important thing to keep in mind with the Cherokee is that it is also after a different mission. The Cherokee is more of an off-road focused vehicle, this is a very on-road focused vehicle, so the two are a little bit harder to compare in that manner. The Cherokee is also an excellent value, it's very comfortable on the inside and has some very nice interior fittings. You will pay a decent amount for those off-road capable versions of the Cherokee, however, there is no truly off-road version of the Santa Fe Sport. You should also know that the Cherokee comes standard with a 9-speed automatic transmission under the hood, and that does seriously improve highway fuel economy, especially in the V6 model. Compared to the Ford Edge, the Santa Fe is approximately $4,100 less expensive. Keep in mind, however, that the Edge gets a standard V6 engine, this gets a standard 4-cylinder engine. Now you can get a 2-liter turbocharged engine in that Edge just like you can in the Santa Fe, but it's not going to get you the same kind of fuel economy as this vehicle because the Edge is significantly heavier. It's nearly 4,000 pounds, this is significantly lighter. Overall, the comparison with the Edge is incredibly apt. They remind me a great deal of one another. I think that overall parts quality on the Edge on the inside is slightly higher, but I think the design of those parts in the Santa Fe is far more attractive. And therefore, it kind of compensates and also helps hide the fact that we have more hard-touch plastics on this interior than you do in the Ford Edge. That's what I talked about earlier about cutting the right corners on the inside of a vehicle. Hyundai managed to cut all the right corners, helping reduce the price, but still making it more attractive than the Edge. And they cut corners in an area that just doesn't really matter. So you have hard plastics higher up on the dashboard, but soft touch plastics where the driver and the passenger will interact with them. Now right behind here we also have slightly more storage room than the Edge. We have about the same kind of creature comforts and same kind of overall seat comfort scores that we also get in the Edge. Now the Santa Fe Sport won't just cost you less than the Ford, it'll also cost you less to operate because we do get better fuel economy in this model. We also get slightly better handling than most versions of the Edge due to the lower curb weight. Toyota's Venza has always been a little bit of an odd duck in their lineup, slotting between the RAV4 and the more expensive Highlander. It doesn't sell quite as well as either of those two models either. It starts out with a 4-cylinder engine very much like the Santa Fe Sport, however it will cost you approximately $3,000 more. Overall, I didn't find the Venza nearly as nice or as comfortable on the inside as the Hyundai, and reliability-wise, they're approximately equal, so I would call that a definite value score on Hyundai's side with this model. Hyundai has made a point of comparing this vehicle to the Lexus RX 350, and that comparison doesn't quite make sense in my head, I have to say. The RX 350 may be $9,000 to $14,000 more expensive, but it does have a luxury car brand and a much nicer interior. In addition to things like better leather and real wood trim on the inside, the RX 350 is also quieter, the seats are a little bit more comfortable, the drivetrain is a little bit smoother, and if you get the RX 350 F Sport, it handles a little bit better and has an 8-speed automatic. Jeep's Grand Cherokee also comes to mind, but it's about $4,000 more expensive than this. It also has a standard V6 engine and it's rear-wheel drive. It's quite a different vehicle than this. Very much like Jeep's Cherokee, the Grand Cherokee is more of an off-road focused vehicle. The very closely related Kia Sorento is an obvious choice for comparisons to the Santa Fe Sport. Now, in that comparison, I actually like the Sorento because you can get the optional 7-passenger seating in the Sorento. You can get that optional third row right back there. It's an awful lot more cramped than if you get the Santa Fe without the Sport. That would be the slightly longer version, and that's because that Sorento is sized somewhat in between the Santa Fe and the Santa Fe Sport. Now, the Sorento also has a 4-cylinder engine under the hood in the base model, but most models of the Sorento on dealer lots will have the same V6 engine as the Hyundai Santa Fe. When it comes to value, I give this 9.5 points out of 10. This is easily one of the best values in all the segments in which it competes. While I think the interior in the Grand Cherokee is slightly better in various trims, in that base trim of the Grand Cherokee, it's very equal to this. The interior is definitely nicer, in my opinion, in this vehicle than any of the other competition that we've taken a look at, and the pricing is also very good. The overall size, price, and feature content in the Santa Fe Sport leave this in kind of an interesting position in this segment. We have the smaller entries down there by the Ford Escape, the Honda CR-V, the RAV4, etc., and then we have the larger vehicles like the Venza and the Edge. While the Santa Fe Sport is sized more like the Edge or the Venza, it's priced somewhere in between that group and the smaller group. It's also feature contented a little bit in between as well. We have the 4-cylinder engines under the hood instead of the V6 options that we get in those larger SUVs, but we do have all the room that you get in the larger SUVs, as well as most of the feature content on the inside. Overall, this is definitely a vehicle that I would recommend. If you're looking for one of the smaller entries in the segment, this is definitely not it. It's true that it is a little bit more nimble out on the road than some of those compact crossover vehicles, but it definitely is not a compact crossover vehicle in the traditional sense. It's a decent amount larger, so it's going to take more room in your garage or more room in a parking spot. If you're looking for a more cost-effective, more economical, and more luxurious entry than the Ford Edge or the Toyota Venza, then the Santa Fe Sport is definitely something that you should put at the top of your list. If you really like the Lexus RX 350 but you can't quite afford one, then I could see shopping this, but I wouldn't normally put the two on the same cross-shopping list. Because rear seat accommodations and additional cargo room are the prime reasons that people tend to buy crossovers over sedans. This is part of why the Santa Fe is one of my favorite entries in this segment. It's also why I would highly recommend the Santa Fe if you're looking at a compact or a mid-sized crossover vehicle. We have very comfortable back seats, and we also have an incredible amount of storage space right back there behind this second row.